number of calls to slow the pace of artificial intelligence so proper laws and regulations can be put in place. In Canada, there are laws that will apply to AI, updated a year ago with the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act. That won't come into effect until 2025. And does it do enough to offset concerns raised by experts in the field? Charles Morgan is a partner at McCarthy Tetrault. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
So let's start with that big picture. We do have a rewritten law that is aimed to encompass AI. Does it do enough to satisfy some of the concerns that are being raised?
So let me start by saying that the law is not yet in place. It's still a bill. It's not entirely sure that it's going to be passed, but the federal government, I think, is very keen to adopt a framework for legislation in this space, a space that's moving very quickly. And they deliberately have set out the kind of law that can be agile and altered over time through regulation, just because we're moving so fast. So right now, there's no law in place. It's not entirely clear that it will be adopted, but they're aiming to adopt by the end of this year. What there is in place in the province of Quebec is through privacy legislation, some regulation of what's called automated decision making. People get very concerned when a machine makes a decision that's going to affect your legal rights about, will I get a job? Will my loan application be accepted? That's in place currently.
And so while we wait for kind of that bill to become law and be put in place and adopted, I would ask whether we do a good job with this in general. I mean, you think about how old laws are applied to things like the streaming industry, new types of media companies, and it does seem sometimes we're a bit clumsy about writing new laws for technologies that, as you say, move fast. Are we going to get it right, do you think?
It's hard to get it right, but I think Canada is looking, the Europeans, let's be honest, have been thinking a lot about how to regulate this area properly. And so Canada isn't starting from scratch. They're looking to what's being done elsewhere in Europe and in the United States. The first draft of the AI and Data Act was written very quickly without a lot of stakeholder input. And so there's still, quite a few things that have to be fixed. But what's clear is even the industry players are saying this is an area that needs to be regulated. The change and the impact on society is so significant that we have to have proper regulation. And AI raises some novel issues. It's not just the kinds of issues that we've seen in the past. With privacy law, there are some issues around transparency and explainability. Do we even understand how these machines work or, how they rendered the decision they made? Are they being biased? So there's a number of issues that need to be addressed and have not yet been addressed.
And then we've only got 30 seconds, Charles, but at the extreme, we have these real dire warnings from people that know this stuff the best, comparing it to a pandemic, a nuclear war, the effect it could have on humanity. This is scary language. Are we anywhere close to actually grappling with what to do about that level of threat from AI?
I think they're describing a different kind of threat. I mean, we need a regulatory environment just so that, companies can do business properly. They have clarity about what the rules of the game are. They're acting responsibly with their clients, all that sort of thing. The kinds of catastrophic scenarios you're talking about, that they are talking about, these researchers, are what happens if AI gets into the hands of bad actors that really have nasty motivations. And there, I think, these are like national security issues. These are issues where, some very smart people with very high security access, you have to get together in a room and think internationally. This is not going to be solved just with local law. These are matters that have to be solved at the highest levels, dealing with, questions of national security, the safety of missile launchers, the safety of our nuclear power plants, these kinds of things.
Charles, it's so good to have your thoughts on this. We appreciate your time.
Really nice speaking with you. Thank you.
Charles Morgan is a partner with McCarthy Tetrault. Well, as we've heard, one of the issues around regulating AI has to do with data privacy. And recently, Ontario's privacy commissioner did begin an investigation into how ChatGPT is using users' data. So do we need to be concerned about what's happening with our data and our privacy? Anne Cavoukian is the former Ontario privacy commissioner and is executive director of the Global Privacy and Security by Design Center. Anne, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. And I should make it very clear, everyone is concerned about privacy. in this new world of ChatGPT and AI. And it's not just Ontario. We have the US is working with the EU. They're writing a code of conduct on how AI should function along the ChatGPT, et cetera. Because what is going to happen with personally identifiable data that is accessed?
So what, in terms of when we say we're concerned about privacy, what are the top concerns? And I guess, and one of the things I'm curious about is what differentiates AI from anything else?
The massive scale of AI and its ability to, as they say, hallucinate, to create fake information that appears to be real. And I'm not making this up. This happens again and again. A lawyer used it for a case. It asked for a bunch of previous cases to support his position. The AI came up with these previous cases. They were false. I mean, it literally, they're calling it hallucinates. So a lot of mistakes could happen. Now, the AI is also very useful, can be very useful for many purposes, but you have to be extremely careful that any personally identifiable data that is collected is removed. And can we bet on that? No.
You had a hand in the European privacy regulations, and they were out front on privacy regulations. They also appear to be out front on AI regulations. They do have this bill that will now go to all of the different European countries that are members of the EU. Is that the right approach? Should Canada look at what Europe's doing?
It's one of the approaches. And of course, Ontario has something moving forward. Our federal privacy commissioner is working with the privacy commissioners in BC and Alberta. They're crafting some code of conduct. Actually, I think there are too many hands in this. We need one very clear statement. I would work with the EU and the USA on creating a code of conduct that puts up the necessary guardrails, if you will, in terms of access to personally identifiable data, privacy, data protection, security. How is this information being used?
Yeah.
We need some very clear measures.
So a little bit, this reminds me, if I make an analogy, and when the atom was split, there was an awareness that this could go very wrong if it was used in the wrong way by the wrong people. In this case, have we taken the split atom and handed it to everybody in the world and just said, go play with this and see what happens?
It's a good analogy, Amanda, because some people are extremely worried, or people who have worked in this area, scientists, they've actually said that the possibility of AI along the lines of ChatGPT, et cetera, could eventually lead to our extinction, humans' extinction. Are you kidding me? That's what they said. And so we have to take some action now.
And in terms of how quickly we have to move, what would you say? We've only got a few seconds here.
Immediately. I used to say in the past, trust but verify. I don't say that anymore. You have to verify. You always have to look under the hood. How is this technology actually working? And how can we adapt it to increase our human rights, our privacy, and our security?
And so good to have you for this. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Anne Cavoukian, former Ontario Privacy Commissioner and Executive Director of the Global Privacy and Security by Design Centre. Coming up, as provinces work on big settlements with big tobacco, a call to use some of that money to end smoking altogether. That's still ahead. But first, a new kind of check-in for travelers on Air New Zealand is ahead. All flyers will be asked to step on scales before they fly as part of a month-long survey of passengers so the airline can gather better average weights. Right now, it is estimating based on older data. For anyone tempted to stay home as a result, the weigh-in is totally private. Not even airline personnel will see your number. But flyers might be interested to know that the last time the airline updated its average, it rose by 20 pounds per person. We're back after this.